My name is Toby Shaya. I'm the Pollinator Atlas Entomologist with the Rhode Island Division of Fish and Wildlife. I've been with Rhode Island, this agency, for about just over a year now and am enjoying it very much so. So, this is a presentation about our Rhode Island Bumblebee Survey, colloquially known as RIBS, which is a statewide survey of Rhode Island bumblebee species, Bombus, and the eastern carpenter bee, Xylocopa virginica. And so this effort complements current regional and state-specific efforts led by the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation and the University of Rhode Island's Bumblebee Survey, which was just published in a scientific journal. So big ups and congratulations to them, which was conducted in 2014 to 2021. So what are the main aims and purposes of our survey? So number one, to determine the status and distribution of Rhode Island bumblebee species, to identify floral species and habitats associated with Rhode Island bumblebees, to assess the relative abundances of Rhode Island bumblebees, and to figure out what are the potential threats to our Rhode Island bumblebee fauna. So wild bees are very diverse within the whole United States and the whole world. There's 20,000 species worldwide, about 4,000 species in the United States, approximately 250 plus species in Rhode Island, and we're still figuring that out. Bumblebees make up a very small percentage of global bees, in fact, and solitary bees make up the vast majority of them. They're extremely diverse, very diverse life histories. They have a relatively short lifespan and differ from bumblebees and honeybees, which are primarily social. They have castes, so queen, workers, drones slash males, which are somewhat distinct in their body types and different characteristics. Um, Honeybees and bumblebees both have colonies of many individuals. They can store resources and they can live many years. Bumblebees, their colony only lasts one season, and we'll go into some more information about that in the coming slides. And most bees do not make honey or live in hives, in fact. We often think of bees as honeybees, but there's a lot of diversity within our bee fauna. So why are bees important? Well, bees are one of the most important pollinators. And pollination is the transfer of the male part of the pollen, a male part of a plant, the pollen, to the female part, which is the stigma. And this allows for fruits and seeds plants to reproduce through the production of seeds and fruits. Over 87% of plants require animal pollination. Over 3/4 of global crops require animal pollination as well. And these crops are extremely important for providing us nutrients and are extremely economically important on the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars per year, according to one estimate. And managed honeybees are used extensively in our agricultural system, but they're not always the most efficient pollinator for different crops. And so here you see bumblebees just absolutely going at it. And they're fabulous pollinators. Bumblebees are generally generalists, so they visit lots of different types of plants and flowers. They can fly and visit flowers at lower temperatures, so when it's cooler, maybe when honeybees may not be as willing to go out and forage. And bumblebees do something called buzz pollination, which allows them to pollinate certain crops that honeybees cannot because they can't do buzz pollination. And so let's look at the quick look at the bumblebee life cycle. Um, so bumblebees emerge into spring, and they start foraging for plants. These are the queens. They're pretty big. They start foraging on wildflowers, and they start looking for nests. And they like to nest in hollow logs, abandoned rodent burrows, in the leaf litter, sort of in the forest floor. Um, and bumblebees like to, they nest in these certain situations certain locations, and they forage in different types of plants. And they, as these queens emerge and they've started to forage and look for nests, um, they start to produce young. They start to lay eggs, form colonies in these sort of also made out of wax, a little bit different different type of colony structure versus the traditional honeycomb that we know. And so right now we're sort of early summer. Um, the queen is laying eggs, building up the colony. And then as we progress into late summer, the eggs hatch, the workers start to develop, and they start to go out and do the foraging and the defense of the nest from other individuals, potential intruders. So as the summer progresses, the worker bumblebees take advantage of the wide amount of wildflowers that are in bloom, and the colony grows. The queen, this year's queen dies, and then towards the end of summer, beginning of fall, a new queen emerges, and males emerge as well. The males pretty much only good for mating and not much else. They don't really take care of the colony. They don't really do much of the defense of the colony. Um, so they just mate, and the queen, now mated and fertilized, she goes and tries to find a hibernacula, which is basically an overwintering site. As the weather cools, she'll start to go find leaf litter or other wonderful, nice and cozy spots to spend the winter. And then she is the one who emerges in the spring, the following spring. And so bumblebees are, as I told you, they are a small subset of the diversity within the United States in our bee fauna. We have 21 species native to the eastern United States, 12 species found in Rhode Island, with 5 species undetected in the last few decades. So notably, we have the rusty patch bumblebee, Bombus affinis, which is federally endangered. And this is a big deal for bumblebees, for bees in general, to have a federally threatened species. And this is a poster child, if you will, for pollinator and bumblebee decline. Why might that be? Land use change from habitat destruction and development, pesticides, managed pollinator use, the spread of disease, and climate change. So, what can we do to conserve these populations of bumblebees and their diversity? Well, we can limit pesticide use, provide more floral and nesting resources, practice reasonable beekeeping, and importantly, monitor their status and distribution, hence the Rhode Island Bumblebee Survey. So I wanted to sort of give you an introduction of kind of a showcase a little bit within a showcase of what species are here in Rhode Island that we know, and sort of show you some pretty pictures. So we first have the common eastern bumblebee, Bombus impatiens. You're going to see it if you go out and see a bumblebee, it's likely this one. Then we have Bombus bimaculatus, or the two-spotted bumblebee, also quite common. And then we have Bombus griseocollis, or the brown-belted bumblebee. We have Bombus vagans, which is a half-black, half-yellow bumblebee. We have Bombus sandersoni, which is the Sanderson's bumblebee. These two look very similar. We have Bombus fervidus, the golden northern bumblebee. And then we have Bombus perplexus, which is the perplexing or confusing bumblebee. We also, have a pretty brand new species, relatively speaking. Bombus oricomis was discovered in 2021, and this is pretty much one of the newest addition to our bumblebee fauna. So this is a really, really awesome species. This is only found once ever in Rhode Island. And this is a picture of the beautiful queen who was found. And this species has not been found since. As much as we are looking for it, as much as we're trying our hardest to look for it. So hopefully in the future, maybe we will find it again. And then also we've got Xylocopa virginica, the eastern carpenter bee. Historical. Let's look at the species that have been historically found in Rhode Island, but unfortunately, as much as we love them, they are not here. We have not found them. So Bombus ternarius, This is the tricolor bumblebee. Gorgeous. Look at that orange and bright orange striping. I love it so much. I've only never seen it in Rhode Island, unfortunately. Then we have Bombus affinis, the federally threatened, the federally endangered species, Bombus affinis, the rusty patch bumblebee, was found in Rhode Island as recent as 1990. No longer here. Bombus terricola. This is the yellow-banded bumblebee. Also hasn't been found in Rhode Island in a very long time. Then we have Bombus citrinus, which is a parasitic bumblebee, and the lemon cuckoo bumblebee. Then we have Bombus pennsylvanicus. This is the American bumblebee. Hasn't been found. It's been found in Connecticut, Massachusetts, but we haven't seen it since or recently. And so I want to revisit these aims as we continue kind of throughout the presentation. What are going to be the main focus of the rest of the presentation for me? So we're going to talk about the status and distribution of our species, the floral preferences, and the relative abundance. I'm going to kind of touch on these things from the data that we've collected and that our volunteers have collected. So what species, what did we see? What did we find? So our survey was primarily based off of the structure of our survey was based off of the Rhode Island Breeding Bird Atlas, which divided Rhode Island, the smallest state in the country, up into 165 grid cells. So we are darn sure to ensure that we had systematic surveying, geographic coverage, and standardized methodology that we can use to compare data between projects. And so for our summary results, this is kind of the main attraction of what did we find? In 2022, we had 11 total volunteers, 14 grid cells were surveyed, and 1,380 bumblebees were observed, all expected species we saw. In 2023, we had 46 volunteers, 50 grid cells covered, and over 3,300 bees were observed, all expected species we found. This past year, we had 16 volunteers, 16 grid cells, 787 bees observed, and we saw all species except for Bombus fervidus and Bombus perplexus. So what do these numbers look like? Well, here we have the total number of bees that we observed across the 3 years of our survey in terms of the number of individuals that we could observe. So we saw a ton of Bombus impatiens. This definitely can be called the common eastern bumblebee. Unknown, this is just bees that were reported by volunteers, but the pollinator entomologist could not verify the species identification because no photo was taken or a bee zoomed by and we heard it, but wasn't able to say, oh, it was this species or that species. Then we have Bombus griseocalis, the brown-belted bumblebee, Bombus bimaculatus, Xylocopa virginica. This is the eastern carpenter bee. And then Bombus vagans sandersoni, which are very hard to tell apart via picture. So we sort of lump them in together. And then we have Bombus fervidus, the golden northern bumblebee, and Bombus perplexus. So look at y'all, look at all these bees. A lot of bees we saw. So again, this is just a breakdown by year. So 2022, 23, and 24 for the same information, just broken down by year. A lot of effort was done in 2023, so major kudos to y'all who did that. And of course, 2024, folks, in 2022, we got a lot of information and data collected. So this is fabulous work that we all did. Then I wanted to sort of go over a little bit about the plant host species. These are the Latin names of all the some of the species for which we saw a lot of bumblebees. There were a lot more species that had observations. But I want to kind of give you a little bit of a visual idea for what some of these species are. So we have Solidago. This is our goldenrods. We see them a lot in the late summer and early fall. They're fabulous resource for bees, for all bees, for bumblebees. A lot of resources abundant on the landscape. Then we have Symphyotricum. or the asters, also very abundant, very beautiful, very showy. We've got Centaurea. This is a non-native plant, but bumblebees love them. This is called the knapweed. We have Vicia or vetch. Um, we've got Spirea, which are steeplebush. Impatiens or jewelweed, of no relation to Bombus impatiens, even though you might think there was a connection. Hibiscus, even though all the bumblebees that we observed were collected from the Rose of Sharon or Hibiscus syriaca, which is a non-native species, we do have Hibiscus marsutos, which is a native, beautiful native species, great resource, awesome to plant. And then we have Cirsium, which are thistles, in which we have both native and common species. So a lot of different types of plants provide a lot of great resources. I will just also say, Vicia, Centaurea, Trifolium, Sicurigera. Sicurigera is vetch, Trifolium or clover. These are all non-native plants, but they're very abundant on the landscape, and bumblebees absolutely love them. So it's good to know that they're on the landscape and bees forage on them, have a lot of resources. What have I been doing for the past 6 to 8 months? Well, let me tell you. I have been quality checking. Let's, oh, here. I have been quality checking bumblebee identifications for over 6,000 images. I have been integrating data from 2022 to 24 and putting it all together in an organized and analyzable manner. I've been making maps, which you will see very shortly. And I've been preparing general outreach material. And these are for general background and individual species profiles. So here we're going to launch into some of these maps that I've been making in ArcGIS Pro. So here we're going to talk about and view our coverage throughout the state with the grid cells between 2022 to 2024. A yellow cell is going to be a fully surveyed cell by RIBS, and a white cell is just going to be a cell that we haven't surveyed, that we're not able to survey, we did not survey by RIBS volunteers or myself. So here's the map. And I will say, given the fact that we have 3 years, we have the smallest state in the country, we have very good coverage. Obviously, we've got a lot in Providence area, Southern Rhode Island, kind of the Bay area, and kind of a little Compton, and the different geographic coverage is we have a good amount of the state covered and accounted for in terms of our bumblebees fauna. Yes, we have some holes, but I would say for the volunteers that we had and for the efforts that we coordinated and led, this is very, very good. And you saw however many thousands of bees that we accounted for. I'm very happy with the effort that we did. And um, I wanted to highlight uh, one of our species. This is the golden northern bumblebee or Bombus fervidus. And Bombus fervidus is a species of conservation need, conservation concern. And URI, the University of Rhode Island, during 2019 to 2021, 3 years, 111 survey sites, almost 10,000 bumblebees that they accounted for, 43 Bombus fervidus individuals were found. RIBS, 3 years, 80 survey sites, almost half of the bumblebees the number that they found, the same number of individuals. So I think that's pretty darn good for what we did. And it, attributes to the fact that even though this is a species of conservation concern, it seems to be going pretty stable here in Rhode Island, which is definitely good news. So you all observed over 40 individuals of this Bombus fervidus golden northern bumblebee. So major kudos to you. So now I want to show you an example of a species profile. I chose the Bombus griseocollis or the brown belted bumblebee to profile first. It is a common species, but I didn't know much about it. So again, if we have our top three, Bombus impatiens, Bombus griscicollis, and Bombus bimaculatus, this is a species I knew somewhat little about. And I was starting to research more about it and sort of learning about its natural history. I realized, hey, there's a lot of really good information here, and I wanted to kind of present that and sort of highlight this species first. So here's the map. Um, in yellow, we have fully surveyed cells, so by ribs, and that we detected Bombus griscicollis. In this hatched green, that means it wasn't fully surveyed, but Bombus griscicollis was detected, and this is only for iNaturalist records. We had some iNaturalist records in some of these other cells, but because they were fully surveyed, I wanted to sort of say that kind of had precedence on the map. Um, and then we had one cell where it wasn't fully surveyed by a ribs volunteer, but we did detect Bombus crucicollis. Great information. So I told you it's one of our top three most common species, and you can see, look at it. It is very, very common throughout the state. Very pretty much everywhere. Northern, southern, east, west on Block Island. It's here for sure. Okay, so now let's go to a different type of map with this same species. This is going to be abundance, relative abundance by township using RIBS data. So this is a map. Um, you can see the coloration of the township indicates the number of observations that we had. So white, no individuals of Bombus griscicollis were detected that we found. And then as you go darker in blue, you have more individuals that we found. Does this mean that there is no Bombus griscicollis in Westerly? I can guarantee you that there are Bombus griscicollis in Westerly. But this abundance information is entirely from RIBS data, which we know is standardized. We can trust the data. We know that the information is valid and standardized methodology. So we can somewhat get an accurate representation of the relative abundance. Okay. So this is a species profile, what it's going to look like. So here again, we've got the brown-belted bumblebee. And I will also just give a shout out to Mary, our moderator, our outreach coordinator, for really putting together all this information in just a really, really cohesive, really nice, elegant manner. These outreach material, I think, came out very, very well. So major kudos to Mary for that. Um, and so we've got general information, nesting ecology, physical description, some pretty pictures. We've got life history and phenology information, timing essentially, um, a map, and then we've got all this natural history information. So I will just say that Bombus griscicollis, I'll kind of pull out some highlights from this one species that I learned. It likes to visit milkweed more so than almost any other species. And research has shown that some of the same chemical compounds in milkweed that monarchs like to eat, they eat a lot of milkweed, right? And they get lots of good defensive chemicals and they imbue them into their bodies. And then birds don't like to eat them. Bumblebees can tolerate, this species can tolerate those chemicals, cardiac glycosides. But bumblebees have a sting. They can sting. They can defend themselves. And so, why is this? We don't know entirely, but it's a very interesting observation. Um, they also have males do a really interesting thing where they use chemical secretions to mark their mating spots. The males will go out and perch from one location and watch for females to fly by, and the males go and try to mate with the females. So they patrol and look for females as they fly by. Um, and this also species also does something called honey daubing, where if an intruder species comes in, the male or a member of the colony will regurgitate some sort of nectar, sticky solution that will try to gum up the intruder. And this is a good option because the other option for defense is a sting, and you have to get the bee has to get really in close, and so it has a kind of greater threat to the individual, greater danger. The species is very cool, so I enjoyed learning about it. You see some males. The males of the species are almost unique among bumblebees in our fauna, in that they have bulging eyes, which you can imagine would be great for spotting females that fly by. And then we have phenology. The species is very abundant in June and July. So if you go out, you're likely to find them now. And then we have floral association. So again, what species were most commonly observed? We have Asclepias. This is milkweed. Interesting, right? And so one of the things that, I want to emphasize with this project is that it is a very volunteer heavy and volunteer driven project, which is somewhat unique among the efforts, pollinator survey efforts, in the state. And so I wanted to highlight some of the kind of the scenes and the individuals and some of um, the kind of the fun that all of this is. I enjoy it so much, and I know that all the volunteers really got a lot out of it. So this is from last year, from 2023, and this is Katie Burns, the previous pollinator entomologist, who really laid the groundwork and foundation for all these surveys that we've been doing, and really set me up for success. So this is a field day. You can see we're teaching people how to net. It's a smiles all around. This is a very, very fun thing to do. Go out, look for bees. Beautiful. Look at that sky. I love it. And then we have Dr. Rachel Benowen and her team from Providence College. Are fabulous, and they've been very involved with our Bumblebee survey. And so she has her students very involved, learning, teaching them about bumblebees, how to do these surveys, good examples of field work, and getting great field experience. And they collect data for us. And so that's awesome. And then here's some images of a beautiful Bombus fervidus, right? This is collected from goldenrod. And this is the type of image that you'll see. You want to chill the bee so you can get a good image of kind of different parts of the body. If you can imagine a bumblebee that's flying around really quickly and kind of very frantically trying to collect pollen and nectar from a plant, it's hard to sort of go through and get high quality images to identify them. And then we know that this is a male because he's got a yellow mustache on his face. Then we have some beautiful other pictures of other species. This is Bombus bimaculatus, another male here, similar yellow mustache. And we see sunflowers and all these other different species, milkweeds, and look at him. He's just so cute. I love holding bumblebees like that. It's very fun. And males do not sting. Only females can sting. So you can impress people by holding a bumblebee. If you know it's a male, you can identify it by this mustache and say, "Hey, I've got a male. He's not going to sting me." And then we've got more pictures by Kathy Janal. Fun field finds. We got other bees on this thistle. We got this lovely praying mantis and a fly on this mint and fun bumblebees. Look like a Bombus vagans or sandersoni here. And then we got more pictures. Look at all these wonderful bumblebees and butterflies and bumblebees in flight, enjoying this button bush. So what comes next? You all have done some great work. But what's next for this survey, right? This has been 3 years. Are we just gonna let it, what's gonna happen to it? So for the Bumblebee survey, we've got finishing and delivering our outreach material, including profiles like the one I showed you for Bombus griseocollis, for all 14 of our target species, the NatureServe conservation ranking, figuring out plans for future bumblebee conservation and monitoring in Rhode Island, and further analyses of bumblebee data to inform conservation efforts. And then we also have other projects. the Rhode Island Wild Bee Observer on iNaturalist, which I will talk about in a bit, and the Rhode Island Wild Bee Survey. And so I wanted to just give a little bit more information on this conservation ranking because this helps us. This is one of the main things that will come from all the efforts that we've been doing. How are our bumblebees doing? Let's answer that question. And so NatureServe is a nonprofit that helps state natural heritage agencies with conservation efforts by utilizing data and various tools for analysis and helps coordinate these efforts among public agencies and private groups. So what goes into this conservation ranking? So it's very complicated, but I want to break down, kind of just give you a little bit of information about the different factors that go into it. So we have rarity, which is basically the relative distribution and abundance of these species, the number of populations on the landscape, and how habitat specific a species is. And then we have threats. So for bumblebees and pollinators, habitat destruction, development, suburban development, pesticides, intensive agricultural use, climate change, disease, any species-specific factors that make it more vulnerable to threats. Then we have trends. How are these species doing over the short and long term? And so we can measure this in the terms of the change of the population numbers or area for a given species. So all this information is quantified and goes in to generate, through some complex calculations, to generate a NatureServe conservation ranking, which we call S1 through S5, and then we have some others. If you are S1 through S3, you are of conservation concern. S1 is the most concerning, state endangered, all the way down to secure, S5. And then SH and SX, historic and extirpated, we want to prevent any of these species that are S1 through S5 from becoming one of these, okay? And then now I want to talk about our Rhode Island Wild Bee Observer project through iNaturalist. You go out, you see a bee, you take a picture or something that you think is a bee, right? They can look very diverse in form. You take a picture, you submit it to iNaturalist, and it's really a low time commitment, leisurely way to learn about the bees in your backyard. There are a lot of experts on iNaturalist, and they can help sort of say, "Oh, this is what you saw. This is right. You're correct." Or actually, I think that might be this species. Or I have no idea what this is. I'm going to post it and see what people say. And so both common and rare bee species observations are very much welcome. And so for more information about this and other projects, we've got a link here to our Rhode Island Pollinator Atlas. And I want to say thank you to our wonderful dedicated volunteers, the Rhode Island Division of Fish and Wildlife, my employer, and especially Jen Brooks, our volunteer coordinator, Mary Gannon, our outreach coordinator, our wildlife outreach coordinator, and Abby Clark, who was the one who kind of wrangled all of you together and sent you all the information. She is our wildlife outreach and volunteer program technical tech. And so she's been really, really instrumental. All of them have been really instrumental in sort of helping me be successful in my position and for getting this event running. Obviously, Katie Burns, who's a former Pollinator Atlas entomologist with the Division of Fish and Wildlife. As I mentioned before, her enthusiasm and passion and drive really helped set me up for success. I want to thank the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. As Mary mentioned, the state wildlife grants that fund all the work that I'm doing come from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The Rhode Island Natural History Survey, Dr. Stephen Alm, the Bee Lab through the University of Rhode Island, and Dr. Rachel Bonone and her pollinator lab at the Providence College. Very important instrumental partners of our pollinator program here in Rhode Island Division of Fish and Wildlife. And so with that, I want to thank you. And if you have any questions, I believe we might have some time left for that, Mary. And you are welcome to connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, We've got our wildlife outreach program page for updates on future events. We have a quarterly newsletter and quarterly kids magazine, which comes in English and Spanish, which I think is very cool and important. And if you are interested in volunteering with us, if you're in Southern New England, um, feel free to email us, and there's our email. And with that, potentially if there are questions in the chat, I can field anything.
Yeah, thank you, Toby. So we've got a bunch of questions in the chat. So I'm just gonna I've been writing them down, so I'm gonna go up to the first question that we got and
Go
work
for
our
it.
way down.
Okay.
So one of the questions a little early on was when we were talking about the bee species that were seen and observed during the surveys. So
Mhm.
the question was, which species was not observed during the survey? And the description of it was the bumblebee with three colors with red in the middle.
Yeah, I can go back to that one.
We want to go back to that slide just to kind of
Yeah,
review
let's see
that.
if I can. uh, um, Let me scroll up and then share my screen again so I don't flip. So, these are here. Let me share my screen again. Present. So these are the species that we haven't seen recently and were not found at all since 2014 in Rhode Island. So this is Bombus turnarius. It's found in Massachusetts. It's found in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. I believe in Connecticut as well, but we just haven't seen it and wasn't found in our Bumblebee survey. I will also just go back to this slide. So all species except for Bombus viridis and Perplexus in 2024. So that means all of these species, Bombus impatiens, Bombus griseicalis, Bombus bimaculatus, Xylocopa virginica, the eastern carpenter bee, Bombus vagans, and Bombus sandersoni. These were all species that were found in 2024, just not these species, through Rhode Island Bumblebee Survey volunteers in our surveys. Doesn't mean that they're not out there. iNaturalist certainly has uh, observations of these. It's just that the locations where we had, we just didn't see them.
But Toby, does that one have a common name?
Which
See, I already forgot the Latin name.
which
It's the
one?
one
Which
with
one?
the
The
red in
Bombus
the middle.
turnarius?
Yes, the one with the reddish in the
The
middle. Does
Bombus
that have
turnarius
a
is a tricolor bumblebee. Black,
aptly named
yellow, orange, red. Beautiful. I've seen it before
colors?
once in Vermont. I love it.
Yeah, they're very cute.
Very.
Um, so we have another quick question. Where will our species profiles be available when folks want to read these, cover to cover?
I imagine that they will be on our website. I will also make sure to send them out to in a nice package to all of our volunteers, no matter what year you surveyed. I will make sure that all volunteers get the full, beautiful, wonderful, comprehensive um, set of our profiles and background information and supplemental information as well.
Yeah, so we on our website we have like reports and fact sheets and all you can like dig for days. So we'll have digital copies. My guess is we'll probably do some limited printing as
As
well.
well, yes,
Because it'll
yes.
be a small, like a little magazine style.
Mhm.
Because we print our annual report that way and as well as our kids magazine. So I think we'll probably have limited printing, but certainly online as well. Yeah, definitely gotta get that out there. There was a question about what is buzz pollination, but a lot of people, probably volunteers in the chat, answering about buzz pollination. So I think we got that.
Great.
Um,
Love it.
Asking if
Knowledgeable
we had to,
volunteers.
yes, I was going into answer and like three people like wrote in were like, it's this. And so it's great.
Love it.
So then asking, just reiterating in case people did not see this in the chat, so everyone is aware, asking if we had to kill the bees for this project, to which a volunteer answered no, the bees are released after the photos are taken. So that's the wonderful thing about the bumblebees. You could just chill them
And you
and
can
let them
identify
relax, let them
and
go.
you can identify them pretty readily by imaging through images. I mentioned Bombus vagans and Bombus sandersoni. You can't, it's very, very hard. Even if you have them under a microscope, it's very hard still to identify them. Um, so some of the limitations of this work, but that's sort of how it is, but this is still very valuable data, even for those species.
Yeah. Um, let's see, what's our next question? The question is, why are we not collaborating with the Beecology Project, which is a community science project that's been around for a while?
I've heard of that project. I don't know. I think for this project, we sort of, there are a lot of efforts throughout the region, throughout the country. I think we wanted to keep it, in state, Rhode Island, at home, kind of in home, Rhode Island institutions, and volunteers, um, but certainly something to investigate in the future for sure.
Um, So we're asking to look at the flower page again,
Mm.
looking at that page that attracts the most bumblebees. So Margaret's asking, I'm in Providence, but many people plant for bees. Yay, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so that's awesome. A lot of species that, and even, one of the species that wasn't even observed, and I can tell you for certain, blueberries, brambles, as much as they are a pain to walk through and see your garden just covered in thorny mess, brambles are fantastic, fantastic floral resource, nectar pollen for bumblebees. They love them, even if you look at, like, I was out recently, saw a huge patches of brambles covered with bumblebees. I thought they were dead. I thought these were droopy, wilted, not bright, the bright white flowers. I was like, this is nothing. This is just like a dead plant. But covered in bumblebees, clearly there was resources for them. So, not just all of these species, but these are the most common ones that we found.
I find just anecdotally, I have beard tongue
Yes,
or
pensiment.
penstemon in my
Yep, there we
garden. They
go.
love it.
That's here. Yep.
Also, I learned from another biologist that who has since passed away, Gary Casabona, a wonderful biologist with NRCS. He had learned that white turtle head, which is a great native plant,
Chelone
except it looks
labrum.
like a little turtle, Chelone, has some sort of medicinal properties for bumblebees because they had this like study where they looked at bumblebees going to like different plants, knowing that like a colony was sick or whatever, and then what floral resources they sought out, and like time and time again they were going for turtle head, which I thought was
Well,
amazing. So I have like little bumblebee pharmacy going on in my
I
in
will
my garden.
also give a shout out to my alma mater, University of Massachusetts Amherst. Um, the lab that I was in looked a lot at bee nutrition and bee health. And so we found there were research that was found that sunflower pollen um, really greatly reduced bumblebee disease loads. Some of the diseases that plague bumblebees, different parasites in their gut when they consume sunflower pollen. Uh, really, really drastically reduced numbers. And so one of the hypotheses, and I think there's research that they showed that they didn't found, is that the spiky pollen of sunflower, of a lot of asters, as it passes through the gut, the spikes sort of irritate the lining of the gut, and they sort of, scrape away and through physical and other actions, kind of leave uh the disease, allow them to pass the parasite. So really, really fantastic, really cool. The nectar sometimes has, like I mentioned with Chrysocollus, nectar of plants has sometimes defensive chemicals in them. And sometimes bees will take advantage of this and use that toxic nectar that has toxins in it that we think of as toxins. They'll use them, they'll drink it, and they'll help reduce disease load. So very interesting ecology, yes.
Awesome. So, Toby, we've got asking, I'm wondering if there are site-specific lists. Peace and Plenty Community Garden in Providence. We're doing a bio blitz in July. It'll help a lot to know the bumblebee survey findings.
Yes, we will definitely have site-specific lists as well. And hopefully, when I send out information to volunteers later, once we kind of finish our profiles, we'll definitely send site-specific lists for sure.
Okay. Allison. Oh, thank you, Allison. Allison's a fan of the Explorer. Thanks. Toby is featured this summer. Stay tuned. It's going to be hot off the press pretty soon.
Also, if any of you all were paying attention, Allison had some pictures in the presentation. So
Oh, yeah.
fantastic pictures. So I used some of them, so
Yeah, thank you.
great.
Joanna's asking, why are the carpenter bees included with the bumblebees? And
Ah,
that's a great question.
I did not address that. Good idea. So let's actually go back. I can show you, give you some uh, visual cues as to why that might be. So let's see, why might this be involved in our bumblebee survey? Well, even I, a knowledgeable person who knows bumblebees and what these bees look like, have been duped by a Eastern carpenter bee in terms of what it looks like. So it's got a yellow, fur on its hairs on its thorax.